Welcome to the Challenges of Change, the podcast where we explore the transformative journey towards self-improvement and personal growth. I'm your host, Laura, a mindset coach in the health and fitness industry, here to guide you through the hurdles that life throws at you. In each episode, we'll delve into practical strategies and insightful discussions to help you manage stress, regulate your emotions, upgrade your mindset, and ultimately reclaim your sense of worth. I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey of change, challenges, and self-discovery. And we are back for another episode of the Challenges of Change, and I have a very wise and special guest for all of you. His name is Anthony Abbagnano. And I'm not going to tell you all about him because he's way too awesome for me to butcher it. But we have had one other conversation and I felt captured by his presence and his intentionality. And I look forward to you guys being able to experience the same. So, Anthony, thank you for being here. And please tell everyone about you.
Thank you. It's great to be with you, Laura. And as we were speaking before we went live, I'm trying to remember the conversation we had because you said I was on a beach somewhere hot or something like that. Okay. I'm half English, half Italian, and to me, my life has been entirely ordinary, but people tell me that it's not. Of course, what's normal for us is what we would call ordinary, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm half Italian, half English, and I was actually raised in England, so I sound more English when you hear me speak.
Yeah.
And I think the Italians would probably agree with that. I speak it well, but it's still my second language. But I've actually lived in Italy more than I've lived in England, and spent a good part of my life, young life, in the States, and then in my 40s, then I moved east, and I discovered some parts of Asia, like India and Indonesia, Bali specifically, but some of the other islands of Indonesia as well. So I've always been a student of cultural differences. I consider myself a student of the human condition. It really interests me, not just the bright things, but also the challenges we face. I'm fascinated by what makes us tick. And I guess perhaps from a more metaphysical perspective, how much we need to redescribe what we consider normal in our lives, because the older I get, the greater the distance there is between what's perceived as normal and natural. I think that's perhaps why I live in nature now. I own a piece of land in Italy where we have our retreat center and a center for our community. It's a regeneration project of a small hill town in Italy, in Tuscany. And that's where most of the people who study with me come. That's where all the people who study with me come. I have a school called Alchemy of Breath, and I train. They call it facilitators of breathwork, but I think it's more about facilitating life. And that really goes hand in hand very well with studying the human condition, because I get to work with all the challenges that people face in life, from the superficial career, business, life challenges on more of a coaching level, all the way down to the deepest inner child work. What are the real motivators underneath my behavior when I'm trying to change it and I can't? Where is it I need to go to really find where the plug is in the wrong socket so I can make a difference myself? I find the theme of change is, like, of course, always topical and always relevant. And now it's a really, perhaps even more challenging than it's ever been. And
It's really big right now.
Wow. I mean, how do we meet that? How do we actually manage to create a space of calm in the chaos that we see? And it's not just that, it's the invitation into that is so strong, but so easy to fall into the trap of the argument or the polarization or some of the negative things without really realizing that's what we're doing. So that's me in a nutshell. I mean, I'm asked like, how did you first discover breath work and things like that? But I'm very happy to explain that if you want me to. But I've worked with breath for 50 years, more, 60 years, more. Oh my God. I'm getting old enough so I forget to count, clearly.
I think in our previous call, you mentioned that you kind of found it when you were 8 years old. Is that right?
Yeah,
Can you
yeah, I
share
did.
that story? Because before we kind of dive too deep, I always like to know the human before we know the work because my brain just works and if I don't know who you are, I don't retain what you do. And I've learned that about
Yeah,
myself and with networking and socialization. So I always ask the humanity first, but to kind of pun in here, how do we stay calm in the chaos and meet it with presence? And kind of one of the things that you left me with last night time was being more curious about our connection with just a single breath. And like to that point, how do we meet the chaos and calmness? Like one breath at a time, or it's very easy to kind of get captured by the chaos. But I will hand it over to you to let you share the 8-year-old finding of the power of breath.
yeah. Okay. Well, I wasn't a very happy child. I was in England and I was in boarding school by the time I was 7,
Mm,
and life didn't wasn't working for me. I didn't have a family with me. I kind of felt shoved aside, abandoned for sure. And I was also half Italian, and in that school, I was the only non-blue-blooded English person there. So I
mm,
was m- kind of teased and marginalized. And at that age, you're sensitive, and of
yeah.
course, at that age, also children can be really quite cruel unconsciously. So
Uh-huh.
life was just not a happy one for me. And then this kid came up to me and he asked me if I wanted to do a breathing experiment. So I said, sure, probably because I wanted to be liked. But he then gave me a paper bag and he said, hold that to your mouth and breathe in deeply 20 times. And so I did. And then he came from behind and he squeezed my chest and gently let me to the ground, said, exhale. And then he let me down to the ground. And I had definitely the most extraordinary experience that I'd ever had, possibly the most extraordinary experience that I've ever had,
Mm,
um, which was a complete reset in terms of for all the problems and the suffering and the misery that I thought I experienced, the grandness and the hugeness of what happened made it seem irrelevant. It was so
mhm,
tiny, it was irrelevant. So it was like a reminder of the vastness of the universe when I'm looking at a microdot and thinking that I've got to puzzle something out. It was like, don't lose focus.
mhm,
There's something much, much larger at play. And this is, of course, an 8-year-old boy that's understanding this. So I think the principal emotion for me was a sense of comfort and relaxation. And then I think for the rest of my life, I've been close to that. I've been linked to that moment. And every time that I have been challenged, um, I've I've gone back to my breath as a result of that. And I did that all through my childhood afterwards and carried it into my adolescence and my late teen years. And I actually had my first child when I was 18.
oh, yeah.
And at the time, I had to coach my wife on how to breathe. We did practice every day in order for the actual birthing to be as smooth as possible. It was a French doctor called Lamans. And so we studied this together, and then I would coach her every night and we would do the breath practice. So I didn't really know that's what I would end up doing with my life and devoting my life to. But even from that point on, I kept going back to the breath when I was puzzled or
Yeah.
whenever I heard anybody had anything to do with it, I'd go explore it and check it out. And I have to say, at the same time, I did all of the things that a kid in the 60s did too. Like I did all the drugs and all the explorations and all the psychotropics that were available. And none of them, they were fantastical and extraordinary experiences, but none of them were as easy to integrate as this. This was something that it's like a medicine that I could take to my own measure. It's not like I would take something that was given to me and kind of
Mm,
hang on, and I would never get overloaded. It would always be in the right quantity.
mm,
This dosage of a depth and a breadth of understanding that really changes everything. I think the best way of describing it is to say, what if my whole life I'd only been looking at one side of the coin, and then when I started to use the breath consciously, it was all of a sudden that I could see the other side of the coin.
hmm.
So there's a perspective that was granted to me that I've been grateful for ever since.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so many things I want to unpack, but a common thing I hear from clients is like a frustration that they didn't start sooner. Understanding themselves, kind of being a student of the self, so to speak. And I always remind them, like, some people never do it. Like, at least you have, at this age, whatever that might be, been able to see, and now you get to carry that into the rest of your years. And I think it's such a beautiful experience that you got to have such a profound and transformational moment at 8, such a pivotal age for, our frontal cortex developing, to find such a secure home base within yourself to connect in an unsafe environment at boarding school where you didn't feel secure or a sense of belonging per se, but within yourself, you found that kind of home base with that breath. And yeah, the other thing that was coming up when I was listening is I 100% agree with the measurable impact that breath can actually have on each individual. And I did not have that experience at 8 years old. I kind of found more of the other side of the coin, so to speak, around age 30. When I went through my coaching course, COVID had shut down the world, and like the not knowing of even an idea of what tomorrow would be like. Like, I'm not someone who likes to really predict the future. I think it's always going to be limited if I do. So, like, let's just live it. But I know, like, what clients I have tomorrow, or I know what my plans are for brunch tomorrow. But when it was COVID, like, I really had no idea. And that just openness, that vastness, while I was in coaching school, really transformed me. But the person I'm thinking about is who I was before that. And, I was a personal trainer, coached people a lot, told them about meditation, didn't do it myself, couldn't really integrate it, heard about breath practices, but didn't really fully understand it. And I guess that's kind of what I'm curious about as like a jumping off point for us, because I 100% agree with you. But if there's anyone listening who still has that kind of aversion to like, all right, we're breathing, like what's so profound about breathing? How do you help people understand the depth of impact breath can have if they are kind of resistant to that idea?
Well, first of all, this is, you know, thankfully, in fact, a report just came out a few weeks ago from Sussex University where they did some clinical trials with breath, and they concluded what people in the breathwork world have known for several decades. So it's nice to see that
Yeah.
the concrete element of knowledge is catching up with the things that we've not really been able to quantify before. Um, but if you look at our ignorance of breath, and I include myself when I say that, and I'll explain why, it it kind of makes sense that we wouldn't have caught up with it scientifically yet. And the reason I say that is because of something that we spoke of last time we met, which was let's just take one breath and understand what that actually is. And then we consider how it can be used repeatedly. And when I say one breath, I mean one conscious breath.
Hmm.
And a lot is happening when we consider one breath. I want to draw you to the first breath of your life, which none of us remember, but was one of the most impactful experiences that you ever had.
Yeah.
It was the first time that you achieved autonomy. It was the first time you achieved agency.
Hmm.
That first inhale that you took was emptying your lungs of any remaining fluids that would have been in there and kickstarting all the mechanisms in your body to be in the outer world rather than inside the womb.
Hmm.
So there's a lot going on. Now, double click on it a little bit and imagine what that would have been like for you, or perhaps you've seen your own child or children take their first breath. There's almost an unmeasurable quantity of curiosity in this first experience of life. This is life force that we're taking in. This is the breath is referred to in all of the major religious documents repeatedly, sometimes tens and twenties and 30 times as a supernatural force. So imagine what that would have been like as someone who just came and opened up to life, just like a gasp of wonder and curiosity and openness and activation and aliveness and vitality. And I could just keep on going. I could come up with so many different words that could only describe a small portion of it, really.
Hmm.
So that's just one inhale. But if we consider what the exhale is, and let's go to the other end of life where we're going to take our last breath and how significant that becomes, that it's exhausting. It's the exhaust, like the exhaust in your car. It's like, in fact, all of the toxins come out of your body through your breath, or 70% of your body toxins come out through your breath. But imagine that last breath as the big sigh, the final sigh that now I'm going to let go. I'm going to let go of all of the things that I thought I was attached to more than this moment. I can only flow with this. I've gone through all my resistance, all my struggles, all my accomplishments, all my challenges. Nothing is as important as this moment now, not even my family. It's time for me to go into my next iteration, whatever that might mean for you. Now, we're doing this inhale and this exhale 25,000 times a day.
Yeah.
So, what's the deal? Why do we forget about it? Why do we ignore it from birth until death? And that's why I said I'm ignorant too, because
Mm.
I only remember that I'm breathing probably 15 or 17% of the time. But that's like jillions more than most people do.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
because, yeah, and I've been playing with it for over 60 years. So,
Right, right.
what would happen if we had some contact with the grandness of each of those, the inhale and the exhale, more frequently? And then put this together with a bit of quantum physics that
Mm.
your mere presence changes events. And that's been proven with electron flow, that just showing up and watching something means that something different will happen.
Hmm.
I think this is one of the greatest gifts that we've been given that we don't fully
Yeah.
realize. This means that we have agency, that we walk into a room and things change. We give our attention to something and they change.
Hmm.
Now, imagine giving your attention to your breath and the sense of agency that you first achieved with your first breath, and also the ability to let go. I call it like practicing dying. In a sense, each exhale is the opportunity to practice what that last breath's going to be like, because none of us know when we've got just 10 left.
Right.
So this is quite graphic and also serious. It's a serious thing to take on board. So consciously breathing does change things. In fact, just the choice to do it consciously is about half the work. Half the
Oh,
work is
yeah.
already done.
Hmm. I think you did a brilliant job of articulating it because I'm like thinking of this like younger version of me who would have been like, what, really? One breath? Like, what are you talking about? But I've experienced so much wisdom and just awe, I think is a better way of explaining it, by stumbling into breath. Like I really do feel like I stumbled into it as a practice, something to value beyond just it's given. And like the analogy I like to use with a lot of my clients is, we don't complain about our body until it's in pain. Like, and then like when people get older and their joints hurt and their back hurts, like you hear about it all the time. It's like we were given this body and we just take it for granted because it's all we've ever known. It's just this body being active and functional and painless. And then the moment that starts to change, our conscious awareness is drawn to the pain of it. And that becomes a point of contention, so to speak. But ultimately, think of like the ignorance, to use your language, that we were experiencing for the decades prior to these painful moments of just taking our bodies for granted. The same is true with our breath. For our breath is it's the life force, it's the bridge to your sense of connection to self. Like you want to know where you're at within yourself. And I like the clarity and specificity in conscious breath versus just
Mm.
we all breathe all day. So like if someone's just thinking of it like that's not necessarily what we're talking about. But how we capture our own awareness, breath is an abundant gift because I know it's something I use, it's something I have my clients use, it's something my coaches use where I always can tell if I'm stressed, if I've had too much caffeine, if I'm too tired, if I'm excited based on how deep my breath can go.
Mm.
And I have a client right now who came in highly, highly anxious, and he didn't even know you could be a different way. Like he just thought you like this was it, and like that's how he had to be. And he's now been meditating for a couple months, and he's seeing how when he's in his life and he's getting overstimulated, the thing he always returns to, it's not the visualization, it's not the lake, it's can he feel his breath in his
Yeah,
body? And
yeah,
he focuses his attention there until he can kind of feel and sense himself. And that reconnection is in its own form safety, right? Like I'm with you, I have you, I see you. And it it's not even just a space of like coming home to ourselves. It's not even just a space of you can use your breath to help you get more relaxed. Like a lot of people struggle to fall asleep. There's a whole breathing exercise you can do to help you fall asleep. I didn't even know you could use it to wake you up. Like literally the other day,
yeah.
I'm in this leadership program and I'm not good sitting still in lectures that I don't care about. It's the ADHD in me. And they were talking about some stuff I didn't care about. And I noticed my eyes like really heavy and I started doing like a really like very fast breathing because I've done that before and I've seen how like that increase in nitrogen wakes me up and it did just that. And lucky for me, no one noticed I was breathing really irregularly or it might have freaked them out, but I felt more energized. So it's this tool we always have access to. And I think to your point, it's kind of it speaks to the larger conundrum, the vastness that we're disconnected from, the perception of what's normal and natural. And like what you described in your 8-year-old journey is like you just saw the vastness, the universe, the how big everything was.
Mm. Mm.
And, the ego brain is driven to always find a problem. But when you focus your attention on a different problem, feeling my breath, that could theoretically be considered a problem in the egotistical mind. You are solving the problem, focusing your brain and allowing you to access more of that vastness without having to lose anything. Hey guys, it's me. I just want to pause you for a brief moment because there's something important that I think you need to know about. So often when I'm in sessions, I hear people talking about how lonely they are, how anxious they are, and we really do need each other. And I've seen through a lot of my corporate work the power of growing and evolving together. So I am super excited to announce that I have launched my community, the Challengers Circle, where you get to come in, become a challenger, connect with other people going on personal growth journeys understand what the circumstances are like. Share your challenges and see how similar we all are. And there are so many resources in there to help you, from a personal coach to guide you through it, different chat rooms to share experience, different labs where you can literally practice boundary setting, practice saying no, practice regulating your nervous system. Whatever it is that your challenge is, we have created such an in-depth platform that can really, really help you create the change you want to see, because it's not just about the information. It's not just about knowing. It's about the ability to apply. And because we believe in this so wholeheartedly, we are giving anyone who joins a full free month of everything that we offer, with the personal guidance of a coach, to make sure you are supported, you are accountable, and you are being guided through. And after those 30 days, you can decide which level works for you. If you want to stay in the free level, that is perfect. We want to see what you use. And between now and the end of the year, if you do decide that one of the paid tiers is what's best for you, we are offering $100 off to anyone who joins before 2026. So if you are ready to accept the challenge, truly enact the change that you've always craved in your life, now is the time, and we have created the zone, the arena for you. It's time to come home to yourself, and that is what the Challenger Circle stands for.
Yeah, that's a perfect way of describing it. And it's not that that vastness means I'm going to lose my footing or my feet are going to come off the ground or I'm going to float away or
No.
anything like that. It's really about getting more real and more present. And I don't think you can consciously, if you're in the midst of a challenge, if you're in the midst of, say, a work, a professional issue or a relationship issue, if you start to breathe consciously, you cannot help but move into the witness role. You're witnessing yourself, the situation that you had created and the situation that you were in. You, within a breath or two, you've moved out of the actual being in the trough in on, and you go to the edge of the trough and you can look at the trough from up above and see, oh, that's what was going on.
Mhm.
My wife and I have a contract that if things really go shit-shaped, that either of us has the right to call on the other to take 10 breaths, and we're obliged to look at each other eye to eye. That's the commitment that was part of our wedding vow. And we've fortunately not had to, I think we've probably had to rely on it 6 times in the last 11 years or so. But invariably, it starts off with, well, I'm not going to show you that I'm breathing. I'm going to try look somewhere, the reluctance because you've got the story, the narrative that you're really embedded in and invested in, and
Mhm.
you haven't yet realized it's about making the other person wrong in order so you can be right, and all of those classic things that we do as human beings. But by the third or fourth breath, you're already beginning to become inspired, right? We're getting inspired now. And then we begin to see that other person's humanity. And by the time that 10th breath has happened, we really get to understand that, gosh, we're all on this planet doing the level best we can. Can we just breathe in a bit of compassion into this space rather than judgment? And it it never fails. Breath always works. I've never known it in all the years that I've studied it. I've never known it to fail.
Yeah. Something I'd love for you to get into a little bit. It was something you mentioned in our first call, which is kind of an intimacy with breath. And I'd appreciate if you could approach intimacy kind of as its own thing, and how, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand what intimacy is anymore. I feel like it's so associated with like sexual relations, and that's obviously not what we're talking about with intimacy of breath. Um, so just for the listeners to better understand, when you talk about intimacy of breath, could you explain your perception and definition or experience with intimacy, and then how you apply that and integrate it with breath?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to disappoint those who are locked on to wanting sexual intimacy either, because being intimate with your breath will actually make it a lot better. It
Oh
will
yeah,
make it,
that too. Yeah.
Yeah, a multiple of times more rich. Um, Really, what I mean by intimacy of breath, it's a choice. I'm going to make a choice to start noticing the way I breathe in the different conditions that I live in. So you mentioned earlier on you were in a seminar and you were feeling tired and you figured out a way to breathe that would wake you up. Well, that's stage two. Stage one is just to notice the way you breathe in different circumstances. And that could be every circumstance of life, when you're bored, when you're excited, when you're anxious, when you're calm, when you're sleepy, when you're waking up, when you're making love, all of everything that's going on, the more you begin to notice it, the more familiar it becomes.
Yeah.
And the more familiar it becomes, then the more you will naturally turn to it at times when you want to adjust the mood that you're in. And this is the key, is that with breath, you can reverse engineer your physical and your mental state. So you can actually change the way your nervous system is running. If your nervous system is running nervously, you can calm it. If your nervous system needs a bit of a spike, you can activate it, and everything in between.
Hmm.
So once you kind of mentally cataloged, say, 5 or 6 different breaths that you breathe by default, then you could start selecting those to use them when you want to create the feeling that you had.
Mm.
So if you're like in your situation when you are in feeling drowsy and sleepy by the monotony of the
Mm.
situation, you can enliven it in your own body and accelerate your awareness and activate more of your noticing, your ability to notice what's going on. Then all of a sudden things become much more fascinating and gripping and entertaining because you're noticing things that you wouldn't have noticed earlier on. So that's how the intimacy begins. Then what happens next is you are at the same time, you're getting something else in this package, which is that you are developing intimacy with yourself.
Mm.
The more you're aware of the way you breathe in different circumstances, the more aware you are becoming of yourself.
Can I ask
And
a
the
quick question
more,
on that?
yeah, yeah.
I'm curious if you use the same language I use in terms of like becoming more aware of your intimacy with yourself. When I experience that, it's largely like I notice. I don't necessarily consciously direct my attention towards my breath all the time. There are
Mhm.
times where I might be noticing someone else is talking really fast, for instance. And then I will come into an awareness of, oh, that was a short breath. So when you say kind of a deeper connection with yourself, do you use the language that you're noticing it as well, or are you still kind of actively directing it?
No, I think noticing is paramount. Like you
Okay.
say, I think noticing is paramount, and it's when I spoke about the fact that we're able to breathe 24,999 breaths or 25,000 breaths a day without noticing what we're doing. Noticing is actually the key. The breath is the tool, but the result is the quality of what we're aware of. So
Mm.
noticing and awareness I'm equating to be the same thing in this particular circumstance. And that's if you take what we the example of quantum physics and how electron flow changes when it's being watched, you can work that backwards as well. If it's not being watched, something is not going to happen.
Hmm.
So take that as a metaphor for life. If I'm not noticing something, it didn't happen. So
Hmm.
I didn't know a red Ferrari went just outside the window here because I didn't see it happen.
Hmm.
But it could have been a red Ferrari, right? So then we get to sort of like, okay, this is an interesting little puzzle about me, and is it that things are not happening that I want in my life, or is it that I'm not in tune. I'm not in the correct frequency to understand what's happening. So, how can I then, if that's true, how can I change my frequency in order to be aware of other things that are happening? And we've heard since that book, The Secret, 25 years ago, how to manifest and all
Uh-huh.
of these things that are rather simplistic ways of saying this is how we gain things. We can
Yeah.
make more money, have better jobs, have better. but they are actually true. And
Oh
they're
yeah.
true because we're adjusting our RAS system, which is our reticular activation system, to tune in to the things that we want to notice.
Hmm.
So again, just the act of consciousness is going to change your life. Making a choice to give your consciousness to your breath will help you appreciate life in a different way.
Oh yeah. Um, I beautifully said. One of the things I think it was Daniel Siegel said to it is intimacy is into me see.
Yeah.
And to that point, like a deeper connection with yourself. And something that I've been, ping-ponging in my head recently is sensitivity in general. There's a common association with a perception of what it means to be sensitive, but I'm also kind of a human or a student of the human condition. I'm very curious about like our why and what's motivating us and why we're driven towards or away from whatever we're driven towards or away from. And we don't take in our worlds, both our internal world, our interoception, or our external world, or exteroception through language. We get smell, that's not words. We get taste, that's not words. We get sound, etc. Like that's not words. Our interoception, we get intuition, not words. Emotions, we label them as words, but ultimately they are felt sensations. And our breath. So these are like our sensory system, both our system and our system, is how we experience our worlds. We gain more experience the more senses we have. And it makes me think of some of those videos of people who, they never heard their mother's voice and then they get the hearing aid for the first time and they start crying because they now hear that and they get that extra sense. And there's a couple things that you pointed out that like brought me to this moment.
Mm,
One is how, when you were describing the aliveness that breath allows, you were using all emotional words. And when the theme of a lot of what we're talking about is how your breath is a key access to your connection to your own life. It's an intimacy point with yourself if you allow it to be. If you can recognize that your breath is like a smell, like a sound, but on the inside. It's going to tell you so much more about you, about where you are within yourself, how you're
exactly.
being within yourself. And, I talk a lot about like emotional intelligence with my clients. And a lot of what I tell them, I'm like, when you don't know where to go, notice your breath because your breath will get you into yourself to understand and
Yeah.
perceive and have that awareness. So, regardless of where you are in your own personal development journey, not necessarily you, Anthony, but like our listeners, whether you're kind of in this vast world, seeing the challenges, wanting to connect to your sense of aliveness, overwhelmed by the chaos, whatever it is, breath is just so versatile. It can absolutely help you feel more centered, more grounded within the chaos we are all experiencing. It can help you feel more connected, not just to others, but to yourself. It can help you feel connected to your own humanity, for it is the essence of what it means to be alive. Like, if you're not breathing, you're not alive. So, like, there you go. But even more so, it's something all of us share no matter how you identify yourself, whether you're X race or Y gender or whatever, we are all humans. And the single thing that unites all of us is our breath. And I like that you made the distinction today about the vastness not being like a scary, like, oh my God, my feet are off the ground, but actually kind of a perspective shift in seeing how small some problems can be in the vastness that you are in the universe. Like we are a blimp. And I like zooming out
Yeah.
on my state and then my country and then my continent and then the world. And I think about that tiny, tiny, tiny little dot that's there stressing about whatever I'm stressing about. And I'm just like, you're good, man. You're good. You're not out there in like space floating around, not knowing anything. And especially, right now with so much of the adversity and chaos and the state of our country. I think it's so important that people breathe consciously because that is the best way to reconnect to your own sense of power. So, um, this is exactly why I'm thrilled to have you on and share the impact a breath can take and how deep it goes into understanding ourselves, each other, having compassion, understanding the different moods and ebbs and flows that you experience through yourself, through life. And I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone who's listening that they're going to definitely need to learn more about you because we barely scratched the surface compared to our last conversation. So, how can people find you? How can they learn more about you? What do you have coming up? Let me know.
Okay, lots going on. You can find out about more about breathwork by going to alchemyofbreath.com, alchemyofbreath.com. And we have lots of free programs you can join to explore it. Every Sunday we do a two free breathwork sessions, so you can be guided by our top facilitators. Um, they're always themed. So no matter what world you live in the business world, in the family world, in your friends and colleagues at school, wherever you might be, you can get benefit from these sessions. There are several hundred people breathing together online,
Mm.
and you can really understand how quickly the breath can help relationships. You can see the way people express themselves in the chat box. You can also come and visit us in Italy. We have what we call breath camps, which are repeated retreats all year long. They're 1 week retreats, and you can couple them together, and they're all breath based.
Mm.
And they also include double clicking on things like intuition development, empowerment, outer chaos, inner calm, which is the
Mm.
name of my book, and is kind of taking that and going a level deeper and understanding in physical class spaces and having physical experiences in the countryside, which is where our center is. And of course, you can then get the book, which is on Amazon right now and is a special offer for you, which is that if you buy the hard copy of the book, we will give you a free one-to-one breathwork session with one of our facilitators.
Ooh.
So it's a good investment anyway, either the book or a breathwork session. But yeah, I think the book costs $25 and you're going to get $150 to $250 one-to-one breathwork session out of it. So I really recommend you give it a go and please read the book too.
Yeah. Win-win for sure. And I'll
Yeah.
definitely link the book and Alchemy of Breath so that you guys can access it. Um, so this is kind of how I want to close, I suppose. You know, the podcast is called The Challenges of Change.
Mm.
If you had to have like 1 to 2 sentences to highlight the main challenge that breath changes, and I know that's such a hard question to answer because it changes so many aspects, but if you had to highlight one in 1 to 2 sentences, what would you say the challenge it changes?
The challenge disappears when you breathe. So the challenge, whatever challenge it is, I would say this, consider that the ability to take a breath when you don't want to is a measure of your emotional intelligence.
Mm.
So, in a sense, when you don't take that breath and you're under pressure, threatened or challenged by any change, measure your emotional availability and presence and resilience by your ability to actually stop and take a breath. And then use that breath as a pivotal opportunity because that's when everything gets suspended. You're breathing space into a situation where there's a lack of it. And you can use that one breath to choose to take another 10. So if you're in a high-powered business meeting or you're in a difficult personal relationship moment, just say, hey, I need to take a breath. Can you just give me, I just need a moment to take a breath. And at the end of that breath, say, wow, what you said was so impactful, or this situation feels so important that actually I think I want to take a few breaths. Perhaps we could all do it together and see
Mhm.
what happens.
Yeah.
Know that, I mean, we deal with B2B a lot. We're in the business world a lot. Know that there's the person in a meeting that suggests that we all take a few breaths. you automatically become the hero. Everyone will thank you for it at the end of it. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Well, you heard it here first. Be the hero, help everyone else connect to their breath, and we all need it for sure. And don't forget to get his book, Outer Chaos for Inner Calm. And Anthony, just thank you for, the impact you're having on the world and for being here. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And to our listeners, share this, breathe, show up for yourself because this is a chaotic world right now, but we always have our breath. There you go.
Good call.
Thank you for joining me on today's episode of The Challenges of Change. If you're ready to stop stressing and reclaim your sense of worth, be sure to visit my website at www.changebychallenge.com. There, you'll find loads of resources, blog posts, and information on how to work with me, Cora, as your personal mindset coach. Remember, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Don't let burnout or any other obstacle hold you back from living your best life. Take the first steps towards positive transformation today. Thank you again for listening. Stay confident, stay inspired, and embrace the challenges of change. Until next time.